A couple of housekeeping items. Chats have been disabled to the entire group. However, you can still chat the host, which is myself, and I will get to your questions through at the end of the presentation, or if it's really timely, throughout the presentation. So do know you can still submit your questions. It'll just be directly to me. If you prefer, you can always raise your hand and ask a question directly. You don't have to use the chat feature. And there may be times if the question needs some further clarification, that might be the easiest way to do it as well. And then just as a reminder, after this presentation, a survey will be sent out. Your feedback really is appreciated. And in that email, we will also include a link to the slide deck so that you are able to review that within your own time and at your own leisure. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful processing team, and I will have 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝘁 take it away.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We do have quite a long agenda, so I'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with employee types, and we're going to go into the different things that impact those different kinds of employee types. Then we're going to start talking about some Bronco Hub actions and the different nuances with the different Bronco Hub actions that you submit. And then we're going to talk about approving actions and how to do that and things to look out for, and then go over some resources that are available for both adjunct hiring, supplemental pay, Bronco Hub Resources, and Perceptive Forms. Start off, we have a wide variety of employees on campus. We have temporary employees who are temporary non-benefit eligible employees. They are hired directly into Bronco Hub. They do not have a PCN or a position control number, and they work less than 19 hours a week. Or if they're more than 19 hours a week, they need to work less than 5 months. Regular employees are benefit eligible employees. They do have a PCN, and they are hired through PageUp only. Adjuncts are temporary non-benefit faculty members who can teach no more than 11 credits per semester, and they can be hired with an LOA upload or hired directly into Bronco Hub. Student employees are students who qualify to work as employees, and to qualify, they have to be enrolled in half-time. Half-time equals 6 credits for an undergrad, 5 credits for a graduate, and they work no more than 29 hours per week. If they do have work study funds, no more than 20 hours in that work study position, and 9 in a secondary non-work study position. They are hired through Campus Solutions with the candidate hire form. Graduate assistants in an active graduate assistantship program that is managed through the graduate college. These are typically 20 hours a week, sometimes 10. They are hired through Bronco Hub, or they can be done on an upload through the graduate college. And they must have graduate college approval prior to working a secondary student position on campus. Then we also have student adjuncts. These are student employees who are also teaching a course. They are also limited to the credits per semester at 11 credits per semester, but they are also limited at the 29 hours per week. And they can be hired, again, just the same as adjuncts, with a letter of appointment, upload, spreadsheet, or hired directly into Bronco Hub. So to carry off of these employee types, we did put this here. So a benefit eligible employee are people who get all benefits offered through Boise State and the state of Idaho. They work 20 or more hours each week for 5 or more consecutive months. Benefits do begin on the first of the month after the employee qualifies. Temporary non-benefit eligible employees have some things to look out for prior to submitting a hire for them. If a non-benefit eligible employee works 20 or more hours over half the weeks in a rolling 22-week period and has worked 5 months of employee, they will trigger PERSI. Once the employee becomes PERSI eligible, both the employee and the employer will be required to make retroactive contributions back to the date that they started working that made them eligible. So if they worked for a year, they would have to, both the employee and the employer would have to pay back those contributions back for an entire year. Affordable Care Act is something that was enacted in 2010 to make sure that people working full-time hours were offered benefits. So this is also something that we are tracking as well, and we'll talk about it further as we go on into our presentation. Any employee working an average of 30 or more hours per week over the look-back standard measurement period must be offered benefits. And at the end of that look-back period, then if they don't qualify, then their insurance coverage will stop. If you have any questions about any of these sections here, please contact the benefits department, and we have their contact information on this slide deck, which will be sent out at the end of the presentation as well. Temporary non-benefit eligible employees, things to consider is are they working at another state agency? Because we are another state agency, we are bound to still follow some different rules. So if they are enrolled in PERSI at that other state agency, then PERSI will have to be contributed to, even if they're temporary non-benefit here at Boise State. Is the candidate receiving a monthly pension retirement from PERSI? Have they retired, and are they drawing a monthly PERSI payment? There are limitations to what they can work, and we may need to make sure that they are completing their 90-day break in employment from their previous PERSI employer. And then you will want to check in with the benefits team to make sure that they are signing their PERSI RS-132 form acknowledging they will not work more hours to requalify again for PERSI. Again, if you have questions about hiring somebody who is a PERSI retiree, please call the benefits department or email them or submit a ServiceNow ticket. Benefit eligible employees need to report their standard hours. So if somebody is hired into a 30-hour-a-week position, they need to report 30 hours per week. It can be a combination of sick, vacation, hours worked, comp time. If they do not, it could impact their benefit rates and their premiums. And also departments, even if an employee declines their benefits, they will still be charged the full fringe rate. But again, please contact the benefits department with any further questions regarding benefit eligible hours. Now going into the Fair Labor Standards Act, this is generally non-exempt versus exempt. Fair Labor Standards Act makes sure that people who are exempt from overtime, which are salaried employees, meet two qualifications. One is the duties test and one is a salary test. If they do not meet those two testing requirements, then they need to be non-exempt hourly, which means they are eligible for overtime, and all worked hours need to be reported on a timesheet. Timesheets are required for non-exempt employees. An employee that has multiple positions cannot be both exempt and non-exempt in the same work week. The exception to this is graduate research assistants. They are not considered employees by the Fair Labor Standards Act. They are in our system as salaried exempt employees, and they can have a second student hourly position and still be in compliance. If a graduate teaching assistant or graduate service assistant has a second, are salaried in their assistantship positions and have a secondary hourly, their assistantship positions will need to be switched over to hourly assistantship jobs, and they'll have to report time for both positions. We get a lot of questions regarding, can they be hourly or salaried? The main, and I mentioned the duties test and the salaries test. This is kind of what we're looking at with the duties test. Are they teaching? Are they instructing? Are they facilitating a group discussion? If the answer is yes, that employee can be salaried. If no, they must be hourly. Or are they making at least $684 per week? This amount is set to go up, possibly in July and then again in January. So if this is the threshold that is set by the Fair Labor Standards Act. It went up to $684 from $455 January 1st of 2019. So we've been there for about 5 years, and we will see an increase here coming. If they make $684 prior to any taxes or deductions, then that employee can be salaried. This is a snip of our payday schedule. We have in the first two columns, we have the pay period start and end date. These dates are very important just because there's so many actions in Bronco Hub and in our Perceptive Forms that are based on a pay period start date. Employee actions due date is that second column. Any actions that you submit have to be, or Perceptive Forms have to be all the way through approvals in order for them to definitely make it onto that paycheck. Time entry and approval is that third column in orange. That's the day that time approval and entry is due every pay period. And then our pay date for that pay period is on that last column. Again, on that, this is a very important thing. Employee actions need to be fully approved. If they're not fully approved by this date, it may not make it onto that paycheck. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us and we can work with you on timing and what you can expect. That way you can communicate it to your employee. With all these different employee types comes a variety of systems that we use to get people into the system and get them paid. Students not in a graduate assistantship are hired through Campus Solutions, and you use the candidate hire form. Graduate assistantships in an assistantship in a position that is managed by the graduate college are hired either in Bronco Hub or with a graduate college upload. And in Bronco Hub, you'll be using a hire, rehire, or add assignment. Benefit eligible employees are hired through PageUp. And if you have any questions about hiring a benefit eligible employee, please contact your talent acquisition specialist. Temporary non-benefit eligible employees are hired through Bronco Hub, Manager Self-Service, and you will use the hire, rehire, or add assignment actions. Adjunct faculty can be hired directly into Bronco Hub or use the LOA upload. If you hired them directly into Bronco Hub, please use the hire, rehire, or add assignment actions. Work study positions, currently, I believe we're coming up to the date where summer students who qualify to work in a work study job who are enrolled in summer, that date is coming to an end here pretty quickly. And from the second week of June through July through June 30th, there will be no students working using work study funds. July 1st will be the first date that work study funds can be used for the next year. When hiring a work study student, you will get a request for a backup funding source. That is just for informational purposes. If they run out of work study funds, they will need to be rehired into a non-work study position to have. And sometimes it's easier just to hire the work study and then also hire the non-work study and let them run concurrently. And then we will work with the financial aid if any changes need to be made. Costing changes, data changes should never be submitted for a work study student. If one does need to be submitted, please reach out to us. We will include the financial aid work study group for an approval prior to processing, but we can also work with you on that end as well.
Really quick before you move on, we did have a question come through. It's a pretty unique situation, but they have a temp non-ben employee who will also be an adjunct for this fall. Do they need to put her on an LOA?
So a lot of temp non-bens are also adjuncts. So an adjunct is a temporary non-benefit employee. So that's okay that they have a secondary temp non-ben. We need to look at that secondary position. Are they in an hourly position or are they in a salaried position? If they are in an hourly temp non-ben position on campus, then we will need to hire them as an adjunct hourly. So that way they're hourly, because an employee cannot be both exempt, which is salaried, and non-exempt hourly at the same time. They can be, there is such a category as hourly exempt. That means that they just accrue at straight time. So 1 hour for every hour worked, rather than the time and a half that a non-exempt employee would accrue overtime at. If you have further questions about that scenario, I'm happy to talk further through it afterwards. And I can also look up that employee and kind of guide you that way. They can be hired directly into Bronco Hub as well. The upload does not have to be used. So back to work study. For support with work study processes, please do visit the work study resource guide. There's a lot of valuable information, and they do update the dates for every year. And you can also contact financial aid at faworkstudy@boisestate.edu. If you need any assistance with any of the job aids that have been linked on this website, you can check in with your HR processing team or submit an OCA service request ticket. And for assistance with hiring a non-work study student, please review the job aid that's linked here, or you can contact HR processors at 426-4436, or you can email us at hrprocessor@boisestate.edu. Changes to active employee records, they all need to happen at the beginning of a pay period, which is the Sunday beginning of a pay period. That first column in that payroll schedule we looked at a couple slides ago. Mid-pay period changes can negatively impact payroll calculations, time and labor calculations, employee leave accruals, as well as retirement processing and payments. These changes include title changes, change in hours, extending end dates, salary changes, transfers if you're promoting somebody, or reclasses, or changing them from benefit eligible to non-ben, or student to non-ben, or student even to benefit eligible. Any kind of employee type changes do create a situation for very manual calculations with retirement and benefits, and we don't have a way to catch if payroll calculations are coming through correctly as well. So the best rule of thumb is to, in order to just minimize the risk of any kind of overpayments, underpayments, is to use a Sunday beginning of a pay period. The acceptable mid-pay period actions are very minimal. Hiring or rehiring an employee who doesn't currently work at Boise State, you do want their first day of work to be the first day that they're going to be there, even if it's in the middle of a pay period. Funding source changes that are adding or removing a grant fund only or an ad assignment. We do want to call out that ad assignments, we do need to make sure that we have the correct date. We cannot change the start date of an ad assignment. So if it needs to be backdated, we're kind of stuck. So please make sure we're using the correct first day worked for that. We're going to go into data changes. One of the data changes you can do is changing somebody's standard hours per week. A lot of times people will do this when a student is going to be working full-time over the summer, because they are allowed to work full-time 40 hours over the summer and are limited to 29 hours during the school year. So we get a lot of data changes for a change in working hours. There is one of the options, if you click quick actions on the left-hand side and click show more, one of the options is change working hours. That unfortunately will not fully change their hours. So we do ask that you use the data change that's right below and go into change standard hours. With that data change, you can do a lot of different changes. You can do multiple changes all at once. You have the option for changing a business title, extending end date, changing somebody's months per year for a faculty member or prorated professional staff, and doing the working hours change. One example is doing a title change. You can, if you're changing somebody's title, and that's going to come with an increase in salary. If they are benefit eligible, we are going to look for that comp and class form or that position action request approval to be attached to that action. You can also do a manager change. So you can label it as a title change and then change all these other things as well. If you're doing an extend end date, because they're going to be continuing on for another year, you can also include a salary change, title change, just a few examples of the multitude of changes you can make with one action. Within the data change under section 2, you'll have your person type, staff, faculty, or student. The only temporary non-benefit employees who will be a faculty type will be our adjunct faculty. ID BSU will be the same for all employees. Projected end date, if they are a student employee or a temporary non-benefit, they will have a projected end date. Their job is the job code that they're going to use, and then the business title is a free-form business title field that you can enter in. Then their pay grade, department. Once you enter your department, your location will automatically be populated, and that is a locked field now. Assignment category, it's full-time regular, full-time temporary, part-time temporary, and part-time regular. Full-time regular and full-time temporary, we are going to be looking at the working hours that are on the next column over and making sure that those full-time hours are 40. Anything less than 40 is going to be part-time. Regular employees will have a position control number, a PCN number in that PCN field on that second column. Temporary employees are going to have a projected end date in that projected end date field. Regular employees, that projected end date field will be blank. Then you have hourly paid or salaried. That will need to be the cohesive connection between all the different categories within the data change or the hire rehire. You'll have this question here. You'll also have in the payroll relationship section, if there's a time card required. And then there's also the payroll group, which will kind of coincide with that as well. And then the salary basis in the salary section will also need to match that if it's hourly or salaried. Then the payroll group, this person is a benefit non-exempt employee, which comes to a classified employee. You will also have, there's temporary non-exempt employees. Those are temporary hourly, temp salary, student hourly. If you have any questions about your payroll group, we will be checking that as actions come through to make sure it's correct and making any adjustments there if necessary. Or if you have questions, please reach out. We're happy to share the resources that we have. Limited service end date, this will only be filled out in the event that you have a classified limited service employee. They are benefit eligible. Probation type is usually just going to be something that's already filled in. You won't have to adjust that. That'll be adjusted by our team here when promotions happen or people are hired. PCN is their position control number. So benefit eligible employees will all have a position control number. Class number, this field is listed for adjunct faculty, both student and regular adjuncts. You can list their course numbers, and that's how we can identify the variety of records that somebody might have. It's very common for people to have more than one job record during a semester. So it's really nice for us to be able to identify which course is for which job record. People group, if you're hiring a temporary non-benefit employee, will be temporary. And then student for student employees, including graduate assistants. And this person here is a classified regular employee. And there's also professional regular, irregular, faculty, regular, irregular. If you have any questions about that, please reach out and we can share some more resources as well. Costing and funding details on a data change, they will show up blank, even though they do have costing listed on the record. You don't have to enter anything here. You can skip to that. If you do need to make a costing change, you can submit a Perceptive form for an employee costing change. Extending an end date. One of the common things that we find here is people will submit a projected end date with an effective date after that job has already ended. In order to catch that, it does have to be prior to the end date. So in this example, we have Buster Bronco, who has a start date of January 1st, 2022, with an end date, a projected end date of August 20th, 2022. Buster Bronco is a temporary non-benefit eligible employee and is going to stay in his working status until December 31st, 2022. So in order to submit this action, we need to submit it with an 8/7, that pay period beginning, that Sunday pay period beginning date. And we need to have it completely through approvals by August 18th in order to make sure that it's in the system prior to that projected end date. If the projected end date comes through, that date passes prior to this action, they will most likely have their record terminated. And that means they will lose access to both email and Bronco Hub. So on this, when does the transfer start? That's when you'll use that 8/7/2022, the Sunday beginning of a pay period. What's the way to transfer is going to be the data change. And then why are you transferring? That reason is going to be an extend end date. And then within that section 2, that has all the information for that data change. The only field you'll need to enter is that projected end date field. You can delete what's in there and add in your new projected end date. Switching now from extend end dates into reclasses, each reclass action needs to have an approved position action request from the HR compensation team. All information in the action that you submit needs to match what is on the approved form. The effective date of the submitted reclass action cannot be prior to the date that's listed on the approved position action request. It can be after. If you have any questions, you can always email us, and please copy the HR compensation team because we will most likely have to communicate with them for any questions. When hiring a new hire, if you're unsure if they have a Boise State ID, you can do a search match. And this is through Campus Solutions. And you select HR new ID or student hire, and you can come in and do a search match. In here, you'll need the first name, last name, and date of birth. It is very important to make sure that we're using legal first name, because if we're using a preferred first name, it could give us a false match or not match, and we create a duplicate ID. If you have any questions or are unsure or having trouble with a search match, please reach out. We're happy to assist with getting new IDs or finding that ID for you. When doing your search match, you'll get one of two results. You'll get either the one in blue, search criteria did not return any results. In this event, this person does not have a Bronco ID, and they will need to have an ID created. The one on the right-hand side in orange, it will list the ID numbers and the names that are associated with that. If you're unsure, if it doesn't look right, please reach out and we can help research that a little further. When doing a rehire versus a new hire, there's a couple of different nuances that you'll come up with. In a rehire, you will skip the address section of the action, and in a new hire, you will need to have that address information to enter. And again, with payroll details, within the payroll detail section, if this is a rehire, if they've had any kind of employment with Boise State, then you will skip the payroll detail section, just click continue. And if this is a brand new hire, they've never had a position of any kind with Boise State, then you will enter this. Tax reporting unit is always going to be Boise State University. Time card requirement will be hourly. For hourly employees will be yes. Salaried employees will be no. And then once you click add, it'll open up the payroll frequency. For payroll will always be biweekly. Overtime period for both sections will be blank. Time card required for hourly associates, it will be yes and no for salaried. When doing a rehire, you will get this error. This is an expected error and it is okay. You will need to enter a unique value for it to be able to do a search match. We talked about doing a search match a couple slides ago. This is kind of the system doing that search match as well. It's going to use that last name, first name, and date of birth to find the right person. So if you get this error, it means that this person has been hired both Boise State previously, has had a job in some way, and we need to enter a unique value. So you can remove that last digit, that 9th digit, and then click continue. And then it will populate in the bottom here. It'll populate the different positions that they've had. And you can, if that's the right person, you know that they used to be a GTA, you can select that person. If you're not sure if that's them, you can click this little caret over here and it'll open up more information for you to review. This is just a warning. The warning that's in the middle of the page, it's just a warning. It's okay. You can just click OK. And then it'll let you go into your action. In this, for salary changes, when does the salary start? This will always need to be the Sunday beginning of a pay period. And what's the action name? It's going to be a change salary. And then the reason why are you changing the salary could be added responsibility, annual CEC, base pay adjustment, spring to minimum, internal or market equity. New hire will also be one of those, probably not one that you select for a salary change, performance merit, retention, return from short-term merit, and short-term merit. Some of these will need to have documentation attached to the action. If they're benefit eligible employees, they will all need to have an attachment of some sort. If you're using return from short-term merit or short-term merit retention or internal or market equity, we will also need more attachments as well. Within the salary change, here's where that salary basis is that will have to match the data change. Salary basis, you can choose either hourly, salary, prorated, salaried as well. If your employee is a professional or faculty less than 12 months, then you'll use the prorated salary basis. Otherwise, it'll just be hourly or salaried. When you approve actions, there's a couple ways to do it. You have the email where you can click the in-app notification and it'll take you to the action. Or you can click the bell that's in the top of your Bronco Hub page, and then you can click show more, and then go to your work list, and it'll open up your work list where you can have all the information for all the tasks that are requiring your approval. When you go into the approval, you can click that actions drop down, and you're given a few different options here. Sometimes we'll request information, so we just need to ask some clarifying questions to the submitter. And in order for us to get that back, for us to approve it, we do have to have you submit information. And that's how we get it back to us for us to complete the approval or respond to what you submitted. You can delegate that task to somebody else. You can reassign that task to somebody else. You can add comments or you can add attachments. If everything looks good to you, then you can approve it or reject it. Approving the transaction, it means the transaction looks accurate to you and things are okay to move to the next. It will show you the approval process in the bottom. So this person, Abby Bronco, is assigned to this ticket, and it will be moving on to Diana as the next approver. If you reject the action, that will stop the transaction and it will not proceed in any kind of approval workflow. This means that the action has been denied. It will have to be resubmitted. Some of the reasons that we will reject an action is for using an effective date that is not Sunday beginning of a pay period, submitting a student hire that is not a GA through a Bronco Hub. Currently, right now, we're getting a few of those just because we're in this time period where the candidate hire form is looking at the fall semester for enrollments, and not all students have enrolled for fall. If you are having trouble with hiring a student that has not enrolled in fall, but they do intend to enroll, please reach out to us and we can help you with that. And we can work through your actions that you submit. Another reason to reject is submitting an ad assignment for 40-hour-a-week staff or faculty who are already 40-hour-a-week in a benefit eligible position. Requesting information, this isn't denying the transaction, this isn't rejecting it. This is just us trying to get, or even any approver in the approval workflow, we're just trying to get further information so we can understand what the end goal of the action is, to make sure that all the proper fields are filled out and everything will load into the system without error. Delegating the task will send the approval notification to another individual to take action for you. That individual will be able to review the same action, same notification, and make a decision on whether to route it forward or not. Reassigning will reassign that approval notification to another individual, not on your behalf, like a delegate, just reassigning it to that person, and it'll be them doing it on their own. And routing tasks, you can ad hoc. The submitter of the action is not able to ad hoc. The first approver in it, which is usually the supervisor, is the first person in the approval workflow who is able to ad hoc another approver. We threw in some adjunct hiring resources. We do have a training session that we do for adjunct hiring and LOAs, but we threw in some resources just in case you need to make any changes. In this, you'll find the LOA upload link, Bronco Hub, hire, rehire job aids, LOA dates, credits to hours conversion, making changes to adjunct appointments. These are all active links and will take you to job aids. And supplemental pay on the bottom right-hand corner, we added that because it's not for regular adjunct faculty who are temporary non-benefit. It is for those professional and faculty staff who are going to be teaching a course as part of overload work. They will be paid using supplemental pay. And supplemental pay is for benefit eligible faculty and staff. Supplemental pay faculty is for on-contract faculty. Supplemental pay is for professional, temporary, exempt employees. Non-exempt, classified, and student employees who are hourly will receive overtime for any extra work. So a lot of times if we receive these, we will be reaching out to see if this is for work that they need to just submit on their timesheet. Summer salary is for off-contract work for those faculty and professional staff who are less than 12 months. Here are some resources for Bronco Hub. We have the Bronco Hub training portal, which has a lot of different job aids, video tutorials, and other resources to help you with your Bronco Hub transactions. Within this training portal, you can select HR actions in Bronco Hub, and it'll take you to the different training and resources pages and all the different resources that we have. Here are the different trainings that are offered that we have recorded during the different section, and we even have our one orientation and other information about mandatory trainings. Action definitions is a resource available to people if you're unsure where to start. You can use this for a starting off page. If you have any questions about it, please reach out to our HR processing team. They're more than happy to help you get started or connect you with the team that you would need to speak with first. For example, with doing a performance, recruitment, or retention bonus, the first step is to review the compensation policy and reach out to HR Comp. If you're unsure about next steps, you can email us and we can also include them and put you in touch with an HR compensation specialist to help. The Bronco Hub HCM Job Aid Quick Reference Guide is a good resource. It has a tab that has job aids that are all including for people who are trying to submit actions in Bronco Hub for themselves, which include updating address, phone, viewing your pay slips, updating your tax withholdings, personal details, submitting your time, viewing your leave balances. And then there's a tab for completing tasks for someone else, which include hiring, rehiring, data changes, looking at your team's leave balances, or entering time for somebody who's out of the office that can't enter it for themselves, salary changes. And then there's employee action effective dates. We have it lined out for you there, the different actions and what effective date they need to have. The next tab is a variety of HR reports with the job aids linked and the people who would have access to them. And then there's a tab for HR Perceptive Forms with those job aids and those processes lined out for you there as well. Here's the list of HR reports in Bronco Hub, just a view of the tab. If you're not sure, you can come here as a resource, or you can reach out to us and we can try to help you find a report. It might take some time because we don't know what people have access to, and some of this is depending on AOR. So if you need any help with this, please reach out and we're happy to walk you through. For time entry, there is an FAQ page on our payroll page to help with any kind of time entry questions. And there's the HR Perceptive Forms page from my organization in Bronco Hub. If you click on the Perceptive Forms icon, it will take you to this page, which will outline, it will give you a link to each form, and then it will also list the job aids. For an employee costing change, you will submit this to update the employee's costing for their job record. If you need to update employee costing for any activity prior to 10/30/2022, you will need to submit a payroll correcting entry. If your employee costing changes for a grant and you need it submitted for documentation purposes only, you submitted a payroll correcting entry to fix the costing already, but you need to have this for documentation purposes for your grant, please put that in the comments so we know not to process it. Employee separation form. This is what we use to separate employee's job, their record. If we don't receive these, they will continue to be paid, and that may result in an overpayment if we don't receive this in time. If people are being hired at another state agency, please note that on the form. We do need to not pay out their vacation, so that way it can be transferred to their new agency. If you're unsure if they are going to another state agency, if you know they're going someplace, we can help you and let you know if that is a qualified state agency. Adding an ICP form, an individual compensation plan, is what we call supplemental pays. So you can submit this for a one-time or recurring additional pay for an employee. Recurring will pay out the same amount over multiple pay periods. One time is just going to be that one single paycheck. Types of additional pay include contract payoffs, faculty incentive pay, performance bonus, recruitment bonus, retention bonus, summer earnings, supplemental pay, and again, supplemental pay faculty. Hourly non-exempt employees, students, classified, temp non-ben employees who are all hourly are not eligible for supplemental pay if this should be paid for wages and they're entering time for this time. Should an ICP be submitted? Sometimes we don't know if this needs to be done on an ICP or with another action in Bronco Hub. So there are 3 questions that we will typically reach out and ask you. If we look and the person receiving the ICP is not an active employee, that's a red flag to us. We need to create that job record. ICPs are for active employees. Is the recipient hourly or salaried? If they're hourly, did they report time for this? And does this payment relate to their current job? If they are a temporary non-benefit and this is in a completely different department, we may need to enter another job record. The reason for this is because we are working to stay compliant with the Affordable Care Act. And in order to stay compliant with the Affordable Care Act, we do have to record hours worked for all jobs on campus. Fair Labor Standards Act is to make sure that if they are working extra time over, that they are and they are entitled to that overtime, that they are getting that overtime they are entitled to. These are 2 things that we are audited on and are checked regularly to make sure that we are staying in compliance. So if we have any questions about ICPs, we may reach out asking some of these questions for further information. If you need to make a change to an ICP, there is an ICP change form. There is a section for you to fill out for the submitted ICP form. That's what we're going to use to find that ICP within the system to make sure we're editing the correct one. If you need any help with this, please reach out and we can help make sure that we can work together to ensure that we're updating the correct payment. There is a change in assignment hire date. You can submit this to update HR on changing a hire date for an employee. This is an important form to submit if the start date is wrong. This will keep us in compliance with our I-9 requirements and make sure that we are not out of compliance that way. Again, if an employee is not going to be able to come in to do their I-9 within 3 dates of their hire date, we will need to update their hire date. If you have any questions, please reach out to HR processors, or you can submit an HR ServiceNow ticket. Change in contract working dates, you can submit this to update non-standard working dates for 9, 10, 11 faculty or professional staff. Within this form, you can do the months change, you can do a tenure or contract clause update. We do have a link for on and off contract dates to help with that because that form will ask for it. If you have any questions, please let us know. You can submit this form and you do not have to submit an accompanying data change. We will make that change within the system with this form. Our payroll operations team consists of payroll, processing, and the benefits team. And this slide here lines out the different things that you can go to the different teams for to kind of help guide you in any of your HR actions that you are submitting. Our next fundamentals that we have coming up, we have page up hiring on June 13th, adjuncts and LOAs we have on July 11th, and student hiring is on August 6th. Here's some resources that we talked about earlier, and human resource and workforce strategy contact group emails. Any questions?
No questions coming through, but we did get a kudos that said this is a great training. So thank you again so much, processing team.
Thank you, Rachel.
If there are no more questions, just as a reminder, we will be sending out an email immediately following this with a survey, a link to the slide deck, a link to all of our previous fundamentals trainings. You will see a Bronco Hub Actions. That is not this current one. That is a previous one. But we'll get that updated to this current training just here in the next few weeks. As well as a link to all of our upcoming learning opportunities. So I hope to see you here in the future. And thank you everybody for coming today.